Hello everyone, welcome. Today I'd like to introduce you to value design, an agile value analysis method, a way of carrying out in 24 hours a value-based analysis and design of your product, your processes, your projects, and your services. Let's discover value design. Value design is an approach, an iterative process, a cyclical process that we call the PESH cycles for problematization, elicitation, ideation, exploration. These PESH cycles have been designed based on an approach that is both conceptual and experimental. Conceptual by integrating and bringing together design and analysis methods such as business analysis, design thinking, and functional analysis, value analysis, all in a context of agility. Every analysis, every design begins with a demand. This demand is analyzed, and we call this the problem domain. And then once this problem has been analyzed, we'll look for solutions in this solution domain. Actually, it's a question of moving from a current solution to a future one by analyzing what already exists and projecting solutions into the future. To achieve this analysis, this conception, with value design, we propose an iterative approach, as previously mentioned, the PESH cycles. In fact, there are 4 cycles. We call them the 4 wheels of value. The first wheel is problematization. The second wheel, elicitation. The third wheel, ideation. And the fourth wheel, exploration. This will enable us to move from this zone of problem analysis to this solution zone, where in the end, we'll have the solutions that solve the problem. The first wheel is the problem wheel, is the one that will enable us to understand the demand, to go deeper into it, to make sure we've understood well the real problem. And to do this, we're going to iterate between observation, reframing observation, and in the end, arriving at a problem statement. It's this problematic that will serve us throughout the study to look for solutions. To better understand the 4 wheels of the PESH cycle, we're going to illustrate them through a case study. In this case, a watch manufacturer in Switzerland, and more specifically in a sales department. This commercial department spends $486,000 on training. And the object of the study will be to reduce its sales expense by 20%, its sales training expense by 20%, and to improve response to team expectations, improve the skills of this sales force. So, we're going to implement the first wheel. In this first wheel, we're going to understand this problem in greater depth, in an iterative way, with tools that are part of the value design approach, to arrive at a more detail of the objectives expected from this study. And there are 5 main objectives. Improve team management, optimize sales activities, develop skills for better international sales, improve customer relations, and monitor sales in the short and medium term. We represent these objectives in this tree-like form, which we'll return to later. And also, we have brought together a multidisciplinary team who will work with us to solve this problem. Second wheel, the wishes wheel. This is the wheel that will enable us to better understand the expectations of all our stakeholders. And in the same way, iteratively, we will collect these needs, analyze them, collect, analyze. This is called elicitation. For our example, we're going to use elicitation techniques, which will enable us to gather a set of needs, expectations, and constraints from all stakeholders. These expectations will then be analyzed according to their priorities, their attractiveness. We'll characterize them and see if they've already been met, moderately satisfied or not at all satisfied. Having achieved this problematization and elicitation, i.e. the two circles of this problem zone, let's move on to the second zone, the solution zone. But first, how do we get from one zone to the other? We have a bridge we call the vortex, which enables us to move from the existing to the future. And to do this, we use the function diagram, a very powerful tool, which will enable us to gather all the expectations we have identified during this study of the problem, and to match all these expectations with the solutions we find. In our case study, we have here the requirements that have been collected and analyzed, which will transform into a function diagram, also known as a benefits breakdown structure, which will enable us to take stock of the current situation and to be able to start from a benchmark on a baseline with an assessment of value indexes. You'll find these value indexes in another video in which I explain how to measure value. Here we have the business value index, where you can see that in the current situation, it corresponds to 35%, and we have the strategic value index, which is around 20%. And so, as we explained earlier, our objective is to better respond to needs. We're going to increase the business value index. Let's now enter this second big wheel to find solutions. And our first cycle is the imaginaries wheel, the one that will enable us to get a lot of ideas, the ideation. And to do this, we're going to propose ideas, analyze them to see if they're feasible, propose other ideas, etc., and get our imaginations going. In the example of our watchmaking business and Salesforce training, we're going to use creativity techniques, which you can see here are part of the value design method. And for each end of the tree here, we're going to come up with ideas and possibilities to meet each of these expectations. And these ideas, these possibilities, will be analyzed, studied in terms of cost, feasibility, acceptability, and environmental impact. And after all this analysis, we'll be able to group some of them together and define the ideas that will be retained in order to build possible solutions. The fourth wheel, the opportunities wheel. We're going to look for all possible solutions. Based on these ideas, create scenarios and justify them in relation to each other based on the values they bring to the company. In our example, we find the function tree with the ideas which are associated, and we're going to use all these ideas to build scenarios which can be analyzed and measured against each other to reproduce the straight lines of the value you have here, which will show, according to the slope of each of them, which scenario brings the most value. We'll use all the value indexes, and thus we'll get results to qualify and select all ideas and possible solutions. These are the 4 cycles that enable us to start from a demand and arrive at a set of solutions through the problem zone and the solution zone. In other words, fetching all expectations and better understanding all needs in relation to this demand, and by finding coherent solutions and in line with all expectations. And finally, in our example, in the case of our sales force who wanted to increase their skills and reduce the cost of their training, in the end, compared to the current situation, where expenses were $486,000. We reduced these expenses by 32%. Compared to expectations, the company's objectives, we've gone from 20 to 76%. So alignment with objectives was increased by 56%. And response to needs, which was also one of our objectives, was increased by 36%. So we've achieved our goal. Let's take a closer look at how these value design studies work. In fact, we'll break them down into 8 steps. 8 stages generally lasting 3 hours, i.e. half a day's study, interspersed with periods of research information and so on. But 8 half days that correspond 24 hours of teamwork around the subject and the request made to us. Even more in detail, these 8 steps, these 8 cycles are part of the 4 wheels of value. We include facilitators, co-facilitators who will facilitate the implementation of this approach by preparing these meetings, by animating them, summarizing them, to present solutions and results to the team or to the management team who asked us to do so. Basically, internally, the team will spend 24 hours on the project, and overall, it will take around 84 hours, corresponding to a budget of between $15,000 and $30,000. Following our experimentation with this approach, which we've been implementing for 5 years, we've seen the following results. An increase in satisfaction generally ranging from 10 to 100%. On average, out of 58 studies, 40% improvement in satisfaction. We have reduced costs between 5 and 40%. Out of 64 studies, 20% reduction in costs, which corresponds roughly to a dollar spent between $10 and $100 saved. And then impact reduction is a more recent development, but we are carrying out more and more studies in this area. And here, on the carbon footprint, we've been able, on previous studies we've carried out, to reduce carbon emissions by 3 to 15%. Thank you for following this presentation of the value design method, an agile and iterative method in 4 cycles. PIC cycles: problematization, elicitation, ideation, exploration. You'll find all this in the PowerPoint I've made available here, either with the QR code or by using this link. Thank you all, and see you soon to put this approach into practice.